All right, so a question I've been getting a lot lately are about assumable mortgages. Like, what's an assumable mortgage? Are mortgages assumable? You know, right away, it makes me think of what my dad used to always say about assuming and making an ass out of you and me or something like that. But that doesn't actually apply to this. When we're talking about are mortgages assumable, there's a bunch of different nuances, and there is a ton of misinformation out there, specifically on real estate listings. In fact, I'm pretty sure that the reason why you guys are asking about this so much is because there are a lot of listings that real estate agents are posting online where they're saying, you know, hey, the loan is assumable, 2.75% assumable mortgage. But they don't actually have the documentation to show that it's assumable. They don't even really know. They're taking the seller's word for it. They don't have all the details. And in fact, they don't even understand the process. So in this video, I'm going to cover all of that. And I'm going to share my own personal story about an assumable mortgage because like I've shared with you guys, my wife and I were looking for our next house. And recently we found a house that we really liked. And one of the things that we liked about it was that the seller had a 2.75% assumable mortgage. Sounds pretty sweet. Well, the devil is in the details as always. Hey, are you thinking about buying a house, but you need help with your down payment? Well, you're not alone, and I've got you covered. I've created the ultimate down payment assistance guide, which is available for you to download for free below. I'm telling you, this guide will save you hours and hours of research. Hope you like it. Hey, do me a favor real quick, hit that like button, and if you're not already a subscriber, tap that subscribe so you get more videos like this. All right, so check out my own story about an assumable mortgage. This was just a couple of weeks ago. We saw a home that we just thought was perfect for our family. Like I've shared with you guys, you know, our house, we were just running out of space. So it's time for us to do that move up buy. Even though rates are way higher than what we'd really like, our family has a need. And so we've been on the pursuit, just like a lot of you guys. And I found this sweet listing. I was totally sold on it. And when I was looking in the details, I saw that it had an assumable mortgage. Well, what did I do? I reached out to the listing agent right away and I said, yo, tell me about this assumable mortgage. Do you actually have the assumption documentation from the seller? Like, do you know if it's really assumable or are you just taking the seller's word for it? Well, first off, he was just taking the seller's word for it. But also on top of it, it was a conventional mortgage. And I was pressing on that because typically, which I'm going to dive into this more, but typically a conventional mortgage is not assumable. Sometimes they can be, which in this circumstance, in fact, we did get the documentation and it is assumable. But check this out. So the current loan servicer that had it is Loan Depot. Okay, they're the one collecting the payments. Right now, their turn time to complete a loan assumption, 180 days. What seller on planet Earth has 180 days to burn during a sale to allow somebody to assume their mortgage? Obviously, after that info came to light, the listing agent was like, yo, I don't know what to say. I got to remove this from the description. Obviously, that's not going to work. So, you know, sometimes assuming does make an ass out of you and me, which is why it's important that you know how all this stuff works, that you ask for the details before just jumping in on it and thinking you're good to go. So let's talk more about what types of loans are assumable, the pros and cons real quick, and also what the process is. So basically the way that it works for assumptions is that you are taking over the mortgage. So if you're doing a VA loan, you're doing an FHA loan, you're doing a USDA loan, those are all considered government loans. Well, if the seller has a VA, FHA, USDA loan, then technically that loan is assumable. Whereas like I was saying beforehand, conventional loans, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they're typically not assumable. Doesn't mean that they're never assumable, but 9 times out of 10, they are not assumable. Whereas on government loans, carte blanche, yes, they are assumable, but that doesn't mean that the lender has to process that assumption quickly. They don't have to prioritize these things. there's really no money in it for the lenders. So they don't really have any motivation to put a bunch of resources behind the assumption department that doesn't really exist. So that's why, like in the circumstance I was talking about, it was 180 days to process a loan assumption, which obviously no seller is going to accept that offer. They got to go buy their next house. They don't have 180 days to burn. Now with the VA, you got to remember that in order to assume a VA loan, you too also have to be a veteran. And depending on the process of the assumption, the seller might not be getting their VA entitlement restored, meaning like they can't go do another VA loan that easily. So they may not be as open to actually doing the assumption again once they get all the details, because most likely what happened was like the listing agent during a consultation was like, hey, tell me about your mortgage. Oh, you've got a 2.5% VA loan? Sweet. You know, you can let somebody take that over. And, you know, they don't go through the actual details of the process that really kind of eliminate how realistic it is for an assumption to take place. Hey, by the way, have you ever assumed a loan? Do you know somebody that's assumed a loan? Are you trying to assume it? Put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story on it. Now, like I said, typically conventional loans, meaning Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, are not assumable. That goes for jumbo loans, non-QM loans, HELOCs, all sorts of loans that are not government loans typically are not assumable, meaning you can't take them over. All right, so some important things to note about loan assumptions. First off, just because a loan is eligible to be assumed doesn't mean that the lender has to approve it. And when I talk about lender, I'm not talking about the lender that's pre-approved you to buy a house. I'm talking about the lender that's collecting the payment that basically is the servicer of the seller's loan that you would be taking over. Now, keep in mind, a lot of people forget this piece. Let's say that the sales price is $800,000. and I owe $400,000 and I'm going to allow somebody to assume my VA loan. Well, that means that you can't do 100% financing on a VA loan like you typically would. You got to come up with the $400,000 difference because you're assuming my loan. You're taking it over. You're not getting a new loan. So you got to remember, when you're assuming a loan, typically you're going to have to make a massive down payment that far exceeds what most people are coming up with for a down payment. So you got to factor that in as well. How much does the seller owe versus what's the sales price? Because that's going to be your down payment. Now, if you can come up with the money, you also have to be able to qualify for whatever that loan is that you're assuming. Got to have the credit score, got to have the income, all those things that you would need normally to qualify for a loan. And again, remember, lenders' turn times on completing these assumptions are going to be bonkers. They're going to be really long, and most likely it's not going to be realistic for your seller situation. So make sure to ask what the current turn times are for loan assumptions. Again, most lenders, they don't dedicate a lot of resources to it. So you got to factor that in. All right, guys, so that's loan assumptions. Like I said, I've been getting a ton of questions on it. If you want to know more about this, reach out to me directly. I can hammer out all the details with you. If you want to get a hold of me and work with my team, contact is below. Please, if you haven't already, hit that like button. Make sure to leave me your comments and hit that subscribe. I'll see you on the next video.